Welcome everyone to Art Talk, where we get a chance to talk to artists, real talk with artists. And today we have Kelle Boyd from andkelle.com. Welcome, Kelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Absolutely.
As I'm navigating. Okay. Awesome. So we'll start the conversation. Like I said, Art Talk. We're here at TSU in the Department of Art and Design. And we're here with Kelle Boyd today. Kelle, tell us about yourself. Tell us a little bit about your practice, who you are.
Well, I live here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm a designer and artist and illustrator. A lot of my artwork, I guess, is bright and happy and fun and childlike. Yeah. Is that good? I can go on, but
yeah, totally. It is very, and we're going to look at some images of her work as we dive in. Here, I will screen share my images. Of course, it's acting funky after I thought that I had it down. Hold on. Am I screen sharing? Nope. Here we go.
No, you're still not. Good. There you go.
It does not like me. Hold on. There we go.
All right.
Is that it? One more time. Awesome. So I'm just gonna press play. I'm going for it. All right. So here I'm gonna go to my questions. Have you always been an artist, Kelle, or what drew you to art? Like first inclinations?
Yeah, I think, have I always been an artist or known that I was? Okay, so yes, or always, yes and no, I think. When I was a kid, I drew all the time and I loved coloring, and I actually wanted to be a designer when I grew up. And I wanted to be specifically, I think it was a fashion designer. And so I would carry around sketches and on any spare time, I was always drawing or coloring or sketching outfits. So yeah, when I was a kid, I loved art, and that was definitely an interest of mine. I lost it as an adult, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, as a kid, I definitely thought and wanted to be an artist.
Do you want to talk about the losing it for a minute? I think that's interesting.
So I like I said, I love sketching. I would sketch all the time. So I think when I was maybe around in the 3rd grade, maybe. So is that like 9 or 10? Yeah. So I was in class, and this is when I lost my whole desire to kind of be an artist, but I was sketching in between class, or I think I had finished all my work, so I pulled out my sketches and I was drawing, and we had a substitute teacher that day. And so she was walking around looking at what we were working on, and I pulled out very proudly, this is my top, to me, what was the best thing ever, my top piece of sketch that I did, and I showed it to her, and I don't remember specifically what she said, but I know she laughed and was just yeah, that's not good. And for me, I was just a 9-year-old crushed, and actually that was a moment I stopped drawing. I stopped sketching, and for the next, I don't know how long, until later in adulthood, I lost this childhood love of art and design.
I feel like that happened with my voice. They shut it down.
Really?
you know, like they were like, nope, you can't sing. And then maybe I can or can't, but I was like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, and it's just random how that happens. Like, you know, she was an authority figure, and it was just, yeah. Um, but I'll talk later. I think it was rekindled, obviously, but yeah, I did lose it for a minute and just like gave it up. Yeah.
So your college education, did you go to college?
Yeah, I did. I have my bachelor's and master's in social work.
Okay.
So yeah, completely different field and focused on, I really had an interest in policy. And so after grad school, I started working for the mayor of Nashville.
Sweet. And I think that artists who have interest in policy work is actually a really like interesting and fun, like, you know, interwovenness. I'm interested in social practice personally.
Yeah.
So like to me, I'm like, ooh, you have a lot of information that artists don't necessarily have, revolving around how community and policy things, you know, can happen to an artist or to community that, you know, I
Yeah,
think.
but yeah, I guess so. And my focus, I worked on youth initiatives and youth policies for the city. So I still was focused on, yeah, I've always had like kind of an interest in like my designs now, or a lot of them are used in the children's market. But even when I worked for the mayor, my focus was young people and I focused on youth initiatives and youth work.
Oh, that's cool. So what sort of happened in, you know, the spark and then the starting of Aunt Kelly? So how did that sort of happen?
Yeah, so I was working for the mayor, and we did a lot of great work, but I was working like a lot and I was stressed. And I remember just needing something that didn't have anything to do with anything. I needed a stress relief. And so I went to a local craft store, and I remember walking down the aisles and I was like, I just need to pick like a hobby or something. And I remember looking at I got to like the art supplies. And so I was like, I'm gonna try painting. So I got like some canvases, acrylic paint, and some paintbrushes. And I went home that evening and painted my first painting in forever. And it was, as corny as it might sound, it was like a light bulb went off. And I remembered as a kid how I loved painting and I loved drawing. And it was like my childhood hobby was just like rekindled. And so from there, I just started painting all the time. And it was a great hobby for me, but eventually I started to wonder, like, maybe this is something more than just like a hobby. Like maybe this is something that I could do like as a job. And I remember I was like, I struggled with that for a while because I liked my job. And, but I had this other newfound passion. And eventually, like after a lot of, I'm a person of faith. So after a lot of prayer and research, I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to take this step of faith and leave my career in pursuit of something in the art industry. And so, so I did, and it was scary, but I made that leap. And for me, I knew when I was researching, I love stationery, and so I decided to focus on the stationery industry. So I left my job at the mayor's office in like June of 2005, I think it was, and I I decided, I knew that there was a trade show called the National Stationery Trade Show, and I was like, that would be a good place for me to kind of like launch my new business. And so I got a Mac, learned Adobe Illustrator, and created a collection of cards to launch at the stationery show in May. And so at the stationery show, that's kind of a show where all of the different local stationery shops and they come and they shop for their inventory. I went into it really, I think with unrealistic expectations. I thought, oh, I'll go to the stationery show and I'll make my entire income in just this show. Well, you can guess how that turned out. Not a very realistic goal, but it was still a great opportunity because on the final day of the show, I remember going back to my hotel room and just really like concerned. Like I had gotten some orders, but it was nowhere near what I thought that I would get. And I remember just like sitting down on the sofa, like I was just gonna have like a complete like meltdown, honestly. I was just like, oh my God, what have I done? I've left my full-time job with insurance and with all of that, and have gone after this dream, and this is not working out. And I kid you not, like right then when I sat down, the phone rang and I answered it, and it was my dad. And my dad was like, hey, Kelly, someone has been calling or called and they're looking for you. He gave me the number. I called him back, and it was someone that had seen my designs at the stationery show and wanted to take them to Target the next week. So it was a huge kind of boost. I didn't end up having my meltdown. I postponed that for later on. And from that, it kind of propelled me into entering into licensing my artwork. It didn't eventually get into Target, and it got into Walmart and Office Depot and Office Max, QVC, Staples, Barnes and Noble, Michael, Joann's. It got in, my artwork was then licensed. It didn't happen overnight, and it was a whole process, which I could talk about.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool. So this person who contacted you, were they sort of like a middleman, or what was their role?
So interestingly enough, they were actually a Nashville company. That one of the companies I went, when I was at the stationery show, I remember walking around and looking at the different booths. I had like a small little booth, and they had like several booths. It was huge. And I remember meeting them, and because they were from Nashville, I was from Nashville, and we exchanged contact information. And I guess they came by my booth and saw my stuff. And so they manufacture different products like stationery, gift journals, photo books, scrapbook kits at the time. They just manufactured a bunch of those, and they would sell into the mass market, so Targets and Walmarts and stores such as that. So I connected with them, and that was my first licensing partnership that I've done.
Sweet. And so have you continued to create licensing partnerships with others?
Yeah, so from there, they were my first licensing partnership. So before, what I thought I was going to be doing was just like, I had created a line of note cards, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to like have these note cards and sell them into independent like mom and pop shops and that kind of thing. But this was a kind of a new business model, one that I really didn't know that much about. So I had to learn a lot about it, but it was licensing. So yeah, I started licensing my artwork with them, and then eventually I added other clients or companies that I also licensed my work with.
I saw this on the fabric earlier. It's the Robert Kaufman. Would that be?
Yeah. they're one of the people that I license my artwork for fabric, and I've been working with them for about, I think, over 10 years now, actually. And so, yeah, they hold the category of fabric um, for
And
my art.
how do you decide if it's a good fit or not?
That's a good question. A lot of times it's, you do your due diligence and you try to find as much information as you can about the different clients online, and reading about them. And then, of course, meeting with them and seeing, is this going to be a good fit? Kind of figuring out what their goals are, what your goals are. Do they align? What your principles and values are? Do they align with that? And going from there.
Have you, decided nay on some, have you had to sort of make those executive decisions as you've gone on your journey?
Yeah, every opportunity that I'm given, I don't necessarily take it. Like sometimes it might not be, for whatever reason, a good fit. Yeah, and then sometimes I think that you might even enter into a business, you might actually go ahead and enter into a business relationship and find out later on, like, oh yeah, this actually isn't a good fit, this might not work out. And that's fine. You part ways and go your separate ways.
So sort of on the business side, do you have a lawyer that you work with to
Yeah.
help you navigate that?
Lawyer, yeah. Because it's important. I mean, like the contracts and the agreements that I get, they're all different. They're not, I mean, they all have the standard basic things in all of them, but some of them read differently. And so I always like to have my lawyer review it. And he specializes in intellectual property. And so he's able to catch things that maybe I might miss.
How do you divide your creative time and then sort of like the time that you have to allocate for, business sort of administration? How do you, your workflow?
Yeah, I think like one of the important things that I learned early on was like tax time was always like the first year. I remember it was really stressful. And so my accountant set me up and with like a software program so that I could start tracking everything so that, it wasn't so chaotic come tax time. And now it's just like, oh, I print this report and print that, and that's it. Because throughout the year, I've been staying on top of like recording everything and entering it in. So yeah, I don't have necessarily like, oh, every third Friday of the month I work on business. I kind of just like integrate it organically for whatever is, I guess, pressing or needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, what does your daily workflow look like?
Yeah, every day is different. There's no day that's the same. It just depends on what I'm working on. If I'm working on a new fabric collection, or if I'm working on a new stationery collection, or sometimes I started recently an online shop. So maybe I'm working on the products for that, or filling orders, or taking photos for marketing, or yeah, every day is meetings. Like, yeah, every day is different. there's no standard day.
Do you do your own photos? They're great.
Thank you. A lot of yeah, so I've done both. I've taken some photos, so that's something that I've kind of had to learn to do, was how to take photos and how to take decent photos. But yeah, a lot of them I take myself. Sometimes I'll hire out a photographer. So I've worked with a lot of local photographers, and if I need something, like if it's a big photo shoot for a big product or something like that, then it might be that I work with a photographer. So it's a little bit a mix of both.
I gotcha. I love them. So what sort of has surprised you on this, journey of building your own brand?
Yeah, I think for me, since I didn't have an art background, which was something that, I wish that I had, it was a huge learning curve, with certain clients. They might have certain things, like certain requirements in terms of how they want their files set up, which I was like, whoa, I don't know any, so the learning curve was like really huge, when I first started out. So I was surprised at that. And then I think the other thing was, like, me as a kid, I wanted to be an artist and a designer, but I think since I lost that, I think the other thing that just surprised me is that I'm an artist and a designer. I didn't really expect to do this. My life looks completely different from what I thought it was going to look like. And so, yeah, so that definitely has been a surprise.
I think that's like the fantastic thing about, like living this life is you're like, we'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
And as an artist, I tell young artists all the time, you really, you have to move from your heart space, or your, like you said, your faith, and always checking in, like, is this the direction that resonates with me? So say this image, for example, how did this one come into fruition?
So those are, yeah, so that is actually, so those are my fabrics, for my urban zoology line. And a lot of, so fabric, the fabric industry is really interesting because a lot of it is just individual consumers that are buying fabric for them to make for personal projects, whether it be a quilt or, I don't know, clothes or bibs or whatever. But then another side of it is companies and businesses, small businesses, that are buying the fabric to make into a product that they then sell. And so for those, that is a handmade business that took my fabric and made it into a product for them to sell.
So you had the fabric already made and were selling it, through your fabric dealer, and they decided that they liked it. Did they then have to create a licensing agreement, or an agreement with you to take your fabric and then turn it into a product?
No.
Because you've already got the rights. You already released the fabric.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. So when I licensed it with Robert Kaufman, they then produce it, manufacture it, sell it, market it, and they sell to the consumer, whether it be someone with a business like hers, or a fabric store that's carrying bolts of fabric to sell to individuals.
I gotcha. Just a question of ignorance, like how does it work?
Yeah.
Because I mean, I think that's fascinating. Like, as an artist, I haven't had to deal personally with copyright issues or licensing. I've worked with a TV show before on I guess image use, but pretty minimally. So I think all of that's pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it is. I mean, copyright infringement is a real thing. It's something that I've experienced, unfortunately, a lot. And yeah, it's just a part of the business. So yeah, it is something I would advise anyone to always copyright your art, especially if it's going to be out there in the marketplace. You really need to get it copyrighted. I do all the time.
Can you share with us, like, what are the sort of the initial steps of copywriting?
Yeah, you just, they've changed it recently, but you go on the US Copyright Office website, and I have an account, and so you just fill out the application form. You have to select whether, like, what type of art it is, if it's visual or maybe a sculptural piece, or I can't remember all the different categories. And then you just fill out the year it was completed. You fill out, has it been published yet or not published? What's the name? What's the title? You just fill out all of that, and you upload. For me, I upload a photo or an image of the artwork and submit, or pay and submit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll wait for the registration in the mail.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah.
So as I wrote this down, and you didn't complain when I sent this question for you, I was like, this is a sort of personal question, but I feel like it's a really poignant question for artists, because we do have most times different streams of income coming in. Would you just share a little bit more about your sort of what your different streams of income? I know we've talked about fabric.
Yeah. Okay, so fabric is one, stationery is another, personalized stationery, art prints, home decor, and my online shop.
And your online shop, cool.
And I feel like I'm missing one, but yeah, those, I'm missing something, but yeah.
Sweet. Yes. And I'm at the university now, but I have freelanced as an artist, and it is nice. I think you said that freak out moment, you postponed it because, you might have had it later. But as an artist, it's the multiple streams of income do make the process of working for yourself a little less stressful.
Yeah.
Where do you see the most like flow of income or like energy coming from, or what do you put the most energy into?
Yeah, it kind of fluctuates. I would definitely say that fabric, and like for me right now, like any place where I license my artwork, I think my sales are greater there versus like than my online shop, for example. That is not where like the licensing sales are. So it kind of fluctuates with the market. So I don't know which one is the most. I think they're, yeah. Yeah.
That answers it just fine. Where do you find your inspiration from?
A lot of it I've drawn from my childhood, from just things that I've loved then and I love now. Traveling, I always walk away from any time that I travel. I always walk away inspired from, experiencing the different culture and whatever it is that I'm exploring in that and where I'm visiting.
Do you sketch, or do you keep like sketchbooks, or like I keep my sketchbook's not necessarily a sketchbook, it's more of a collage book.
Yeah. I don't. I don't. I have an idea book, but I don't keep a sketchbook. I have on my iPad Pro, I sketch more on there. But a lot of times, yeah, I haven't kept a sketchbook.
I mean, an
Yeah.
idea book, I think, is the sort of
Yeah, okay. Well, I have an idea. And then I have sticky notes where I have like all these ideas, and yeah. And then I'll find them. I'm like, oh, this was, yeah. Oh, okay. I remember that now. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I never had much success with sketchbooks. Like for me, they were a lot of pressure. So my collage book, I am free to play. And so everyone has their own way how they process. What motivates you?
What motivates me to create?
Yeah, to create.
I think what motivates me is just, I don't know. I think a lot of the art that I have, my motivation is with my artwork is always kind of like an unspoken motto is I want to see people smile. And so with a lot of my artwork, that's where the motivation comes from, is to be a bright spot. Because, you know, things are not great out there, you know? And so if I can be a source of, yeah, happiness or joy or make someone smile, I consider it, yeah, I consider that a good thing.
I think you're doing your job.
Thank you.
He makes me smile for sure.
Thank you.
What are some things that you're exploring or interested in developing in the future with art?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of categories that I still would like to have my art on, you know, a lot more children's products and wallpaper, or I don't know, like children's book bags. I really want to get into children's books. So I'm actually taking classes on storytelling and children's book design. That's a category that I'm really interested in.
Definitely. Well, is there anything you want to add before we open up the floor for Q&A? That's all my questions.
Yeah, they were great questions too. No, I don't think so.
All right, I'm gonna open up the floor. Do we have any friends on the chat that would like to ask Kelly any questions?
I have a question. Can I chime in?
Yes.
Hi, Kelly. Thank you for, I apologize for coming in late.
Oh.
I don't know if this question was already covered at the beginning, but do you feel that identity plays a role in your work at all? So being a woman and a woman of color, do you pay attention to ideas surrounding identity or representation in your work?
I think I do. Yeah, it's very important to me. One of the collections for fabric, you might have saw there were like dolls and the different characters with the little girls. So that came about. One of the little girls, the main little girl, I had been drawing her since I was a kid, and she had like a top knot, and she always wore the color pink, and she had a tutu on. And so I came up with the idea to make her into, oh yeah, that's some of them. So make them into a fabric collection, and it would be about different girls that all look different, and they would just get together and have adventures. And I remember when I shared that, my idea, yeah, that's them. Those are the girlfriends. So when I shared my idea, I remember telling them, like, so this is my idea. I shared with them the drawings I did, and I said, you know, a lot of times, side note, a lot of times in art, in design, when you're working with different manufacturers, especially when it's going to market, you know, they'll change the colors or they'll make little minor adjustments. And I remember telling them, I said, here's the idea that I have. I pitched the idea, and I said, here's the thing. Do not change their color. Don't change their skin color. Don't change their hair color. If you do, then I don't want to do it. And they were like, no, let's go with it. And so having girls that look different and represent what I think is like just different people from different walks of life is important to me. And I think it's reflected in my artwork, and it's something that's important to me. It's a natural, it wasn't, I guess it was, I'm trying to think if it was, it's intentional, you know, because it's one of my, it's an important value of mine.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
So I had a question also, Kelly, and hello again. It's great to meet you. My name is Eric Jackson, and I'm one of the instructors here in the art department as well. But I was wondering if there were any other artists that currently do what you do that you really admire, that inspire you?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. Let me think for a minute. One of the artists that I love the work of, Andrea Pippins. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She illustrates books, and she has products, and I love her work. I love the work of, let's see, who else? Susie Altman. She does a great job with her work. Joy Cho, I love how her brand of Oh Joy, I think, is she's done a great job. Let's see who else. Jordan Sondler, love her work. She's out of New York. And let's see who else. There's a lot. I can keep.
Yeah.
Let's see who else. I know yeah, I guess I don't. Orla Kiley, I've been a huge fan of hers. She's still designing, I think, but I've been a big fan of hers as well. When I was first starting out, she was like my prime inspiration and person that I really like.
That's awesome. I really enjoy your work. Seeing many of the things that you've shown remind me of a class I taught a couple years ago, which was called Digital Illustration. Yeah. And one of the projects that was in there was actually pattern design.
Okay.
So with that, and kind of talking to those graphic design students, really got them to think, because I was just like, I was like, guys, think about when you have birthday parties or Christmas gifts and you wrap them, somebody has to design those things. Yeah. It's like it's really a market for it. So it really made them think about it as they learn. Actually, we were using Adobe Illustrator as well. Yeah. Taught them how to develop their own patterns and, of course, give them that seamless look and feel. So definitely great to see those things as well. But another thing it also made me think about, even from the aspect of, we kind of view that from the aspect of even like rebranding hotels, and to think of everything such as like if there's a special pattern on the linens or the carpeting or the walls, artwork throughout the hotel.
Yeah,
definitely have the essence for what you do. So that's a cool thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome that you taught that. Yeah, I would like to take that class.
We shall see. Who knows what the future holds here at TSU.
Awesome. Any more questions for Miss Kelly?
Yeah. How you doing? Ms. Boyd, I certainly appreciate you taking part in this. And I'm Samuel Dunson. I'm a faculty member as well. And myself as a painter and an artist, we don't really have, I would guess, a client to kind of have a lot of pushback on our ideas. But knowing that you're dealing with such large, businesses that do have that kind of push where it would almost seem like it's the entire business kind of against your own self as an artist. How do you kind of have that or maneuver that push and pull between putting your vision out and having some pushback against a large conglomerate business that knows the model that they want? Could you tell us any ways that you can kind of speak to a business to give them your vision as opposed to kind of conforming to their own visions?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's definitely something that I encounter with a lot of different interactions with clients. And I think that first of all, you can always say no. That means you might not get that, work. And so you have to weigh that. But, I've had clients, like I remember when I first started out, I love the color pink. And so I remember I was putting pink, in Christmas stuff. And they're like, no, it's traditional. I remember one of the art directors being like, it's traditional colors. We don't want your pink. And so you just kind of have to weigh is holding on to the color pink in this design, is this like that important, or can I use coral, which is slightly pink and red, which, you know, and then, like I said, sometimes it's just like you either take it as it is or you don't get it. Sometimes I have put my foot down and I'm like, I'm not changing. Nope, this isn't a good fit for me. And then other times, you know, if it's like a changing a color, you know, that a lot of these businesses, you know, they kind of already know what they want. Honestly, they already know, they have briefs, they have call outs that they send to the designers, and they're like, this is the parameters, this is what we're looking for, and you can design within it if you want to. If you don't, then you don't. But which was one of the reasons I think I recently reopened an online shop, was I just wanted creative freedom just to do whatever I wanted and not have any parameters kind of around that. Which was great. And then it ended up, a lot of the artwork that I had in my online shop I ended up licensing it as well. But it started with just having that freedom, that outlet over here where I can just create whatever. And then later on I did, okay, I might incorporate that into this over here and license it. So did that answer your question?
Yes, that mostly did. That most definitely did. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anybody else?
Yeah, I had another question actually, if you guys have time.
All right, Eric.
Okay, so one more question. But overall, Kelle, I was also interested in wondering what's your approach as far as, of course, when you receive a new project or potential project that you're going to work on. What?
Muted.
I'm sorry. What is kind of your standard approach as far as research, as well as when you're trying to narrow down demographics for your target audience for a specific project that you're working on?
Are you talking about like whether or not to work with a client, or are you talking about in terms of coming up with the art for the client?
Right. So in terms of coming up with the art for the client, especially if they are trying to target a specific audience or age group or something like that.
Okay. So how do I do the research for that?
Yes.
Okay. So a lot of times, like I said, or like a lot of clients come, especially the bigger clients, they have like, some of them might already have like a call out or an inspiration board that they'll share with you of, this is kind of where we want to go, or this is kind of the things. And so then I'll take that and form my own inspiration board or my own inspiration. I'll usually look into the market, see what's out there now, also look at trend reports to kind of see what is forecasted for the future, and design based off of that. And then sometimes, honestly, Eric, I just create.
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, that's usually where my stronger pieces come from. I usually will do a mix. I'll design based off of, you know, the call out or whatever they've given me. And then I'll just design from in here and just design what I want. And honestly, usually the stuff that I design from just in here, it typically is what is stronger and resonates. And so
yeah,
you get a lot of, it's not that, and a lot of times with some clients, you know, I'll submit, you know, a lot of different art pieces for them to select. And it might be that I submit like 30 and 5 get chosen, or 2, you know, it just really varies. Did that answer?
Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one last question. I'm Jonathan Stockstill Biggs, and I'm a sophomore at TSU. And so I was just curious, you said that you stopped doing art for a long time. Did you become like a self-taught artist, or is there like people that help you with your art skills and your design skills when you interact with these major corporations?
Yeah, I guess I became a self-taught artist. I didn't take any art classes. I actually, when I was doing my research, after I had started painting, and I was like, the thought of pursuing something in the art and the design industry was on my heart and mind. I kind of was like, well, should I go back to school for this? I already had my master's, but I did meet with like a university and talked with them, and they were like, they actually discouraged it, which I was really surprised about, because I wanted to go back to school. Because I just felt like there was so much for me to learn, but they were like, do you really, like, I just remember being like, do you really want to go back to school? And I was like, well, no, but I knew I wanted to pursue this, and I felt like I had, you know, school, that just was a natural to me progression. Like, you go to school, you learn how to do this, and then you enter into the workforce. So not going back to school and then entering to the workforce, that just seemed really odd to me. So yeah, I guess I taught myself, which was crazy, because prior to launching my business, I was like a PC user. You know, I had never had a Mac. So even that was like, what is this? But I knew that in my research, everyone used Macs that was a designer. So I got a Mac, and then I had read that everyone was using Creative Suite, Adobe Creative Suite. And I was like, okay, I'll get that. And so I think I took like, a day class on Adobe Illustrator. And then I just taught myself. Yeah. And I still wish I still would like to go to school. Like, I still have that desire, because I love learning. I do, Jonathan, I take classes like here and there, like little online classes, like through Skillshare. And like I said, I'm signed up. I'm in a storytelling academy, and so I'm taking classes through that. So I'm constantly learning, even now. Like I still take classes, like wanting to, like my designs that I have now, you know, I'm having to but develop them for children's books, because that's kind of a different kind of style and a different way of drawing and thinking. And so that is something that I am learning to do by taking like classes and online classes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think as artists, like, it's important to be a continual learner, because there's so much out there and so much we can, you know. Sam Dunson, who asked a question earlier, he produced his first children's book last year or two. Is it 2 years now, Sam? Is it 1 year? It was 1 year.
Well, it's not completed yet, just due to the fact that I'm trying to go through that editing process and all that, so it kind of slowed down. But the learning curve for that, and going in kind of thinking that you know certain things, had to be blown out of the water. But it was really enjoyable to find out what you don't know, because just as, I guess, as an artist, you have a tendency to kind of think that you know certain things, but when it comes to something that you truly have never tried, the beauty of that research is something that is probably more helpful than anything else. But yeah, it's still the process is ongoing.
Life learner.
Yes.
What is the name? Have you released the title or the name of the book? I love children's books. I'd love to get it.
Yeah. It's the title is Just Imagine, and it's kind of a play off of the name Justin, and kind of deals with the idea of a young boy that has access to the internet, kind of post-internet child, I guess you would say, who has to go to his grandmother's house, who really doesn't have as much access to the internet as he would like. And his grandmother is kind of not forcing, but bringing him along and kind of coaxing him to understand that before, you kind of move forward in kind of creative thinking, you have to imagine some things. So it's kind of a play on that double entendre, I guess you would say, with just imagine this, just imagine that, where the child who's reading it is kind of asked to imagine the things that this little boy Justin would be imagining, but also kind of the play on his grandmother in the actual story telling Just, nicknamed Just, to imagine certain things, and those things are actually drawn by the child who's reading the book. So it's a play on that, and it's
I love
learning process.
Is it going to be released in 2021 or?
That's actually what I'm looking for. I mean, it got all the way to the point where it's the editing aspect of it is what's kind of not, I won't say holding it up, but with everything that's gone on, there's been a number of things that have actually held it up, and 2020 held it up. So I'll blame it on that. but yeah, it's kind of at the process now of the editing aspect of it. But everything else is pretty much ready for that to move. So I'm looking forward to 2021. We're really getting it finished.
Well, congratulations. I will be on the lookout for it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'll share a little bit. We did a show based on it last year, so I'll share that with you, Kelly. You can check it out.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate everyone for joining us today, and especially Kelle Boyd from Ann Kelly. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yes,
Thank you.
Kelly. Yes, you're welcome at TSU anytime.
Thank
Maybe
you.
they'll
My
even say that again.
brother is a graduate of TSU, so.
You're big blue then. You are
Yeah.
big blue.
Yeah, and I just wanted to let you know that I actually have your Christmas wrapping paper in my closet. I love it.
Wow, that's funny.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Maybe we can spur some more online buying in your store. I love, the website's great. If y'all haven't been to the website, it's really easy to navigate. Beautiful, bright colors, lots of fun things to check out.
Thank you. Thanks.
So I don't know, do I have any announcements? In the art department, I'm So Glad opens Monday, so look for the digital gallery. And then our next art talk is November 16th. We're going to have two gallerists joining us. One is from Memphis and the other is from Nashville, and they'll talk about their perspective as artists coming to them, how an artist takes on the role of showing them their artwork, how they build relationships, and what they look for in their artist. So that should be 16th, October 16th. Thank you. I think I said something wrong there, but that will be not next Friday, but the Friday after, so 1 o'clock. All right.